Welcome back to the Gen 20 podcast. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Marina.
And today we're chatting about how social media impacts our mental health.
Boy, does it. We were talking about this with... Don't laugh at me.
It does.
We can cut that out.
No, we have to leave it in. It's too funny.
Okay.
I love it.
Boy, does it. But, we were just talking about this, especially with the pandemic. We are on our phones and computers all the time. I saw, I guess, a funny meme. I don't know. Well, it was funny. I guess it was a meme on Instagram about how, as humans in the pandemic, we work all day on our medium-sized screen and take breaks to look at our little screens, and then at the end of the day reward ourselves by watching the big screen. It's like,
yeah,
not true. It's not true.
Yeah. It is, I think. I mean, I work a different kind of schedule, but I mean, yeah, I'm always looking at some kind of screen all day, which reminds me to put on my blue light glasses.
Oh yeah, let's get them.
So I'll do that now. Friendly reminder to anyone listening, blue light glasses. This isn't sponsored by anyone, but maybe one day it will be.
Maybe one day. And also a pro tip, if you do work on a computer, make sure or a laptop, make sure it's at like an elevated level so that you're not hunching, and look away from your computer every once in a while and blink.
Blink,
this is not sponsored.
Eye drop.
And I'm not a doctor.
Also helpful.
Yeah, well, when the pandemic first started and I went from working in my company's office to working from home, I wasn't getting up to go to meetings or go get coffee as much as I would have. And so it was concentrated screen time, and I started getting headaches from eye strain.
Yeah, I would believe it.
Yeah, and it's not the only way that the social media and screen time impacts us, right? So that's a physical health attribute, but...
Yeah, I love this segue back into
segueing
mental health. Yeah, I think there are definitely good things about social media. I think we can probably start there, because especially during the pandemic, where we're not like physically connected to other people, right? We need kind of, in a way to feel more connected to people around us. And I think that we've kind of seen this shift a bit in the content that's being shared throughout the pandemic, where I feel like people have been very, very much more honest about what they're struggling with during the pandemic. Like, I feel like maybe not so much of radical honesty, but that people are sharing, like, I'm really having a difficult time with all this being at home and all of these things. So I think in that respect, social media and like actually being able to have it during the COVID-19 pandemic, where they probably did not have anything like that during the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how they would have communicated. I'm like imagining paper just being thrown. I don't really know.
Yeah,
I don't know, actually.
Ghosts from the pandemic of past, can you drop in and let us know? Yeah. I asked my grandma, actually, because her brother's older and he remembered their parents talking about the Spanish flu, and it was just, you just stayed home, and it was like barely recorded in the paper, so you maybe chatted with your neighbors from a safe distance, but we weren't connected on the same scope as we are now. And I think that's one of the incredibly helpful things about social media, is that we can have more of a global perspective. It can be very isolating, but you can also find the people who like the things you like, even if they're not in your town. And and I mean, maybe this is bad, but I get a lot of news and updates from social media, because people post updates faster than I can read the headlines on the newspaper.
Yeah, and it's interesting to kind of see how things are like on the ground, so to speak, in like different places. Like with the whole ice storm and weather situation in Texas, I feel like we learned more about what was truly happening there based on people's experiences and what they were sharing on social media versus even like news headlines and news articles. It's like a very different shift. So I think in that respect, and even just being more connected with friends and family, like Marina and I are recording this podcast on completely different coasts and we're FaceTiming, but this wouldn't be possible
Yeah, we're
if
using
it
like
wasn't for social media.
so many sets of screens right now.
Yeah. That's why we have blue light glasses on.
Like, speaking of that, Nicole and my friendship wouldn't have existed without the internet because we became friends over Gen 20 over email and
Mm-hmm.
FaceTime.
Email.
Send it to Zoom.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, but at the same time, we're definitely feeling that burnout, right? From being overly
Mm-hmm.
connected, overly accessible. And there's this thing my chiropractor calls tech neck, where because of how often we spend looking down at our phones, our spines and our like neck column, whatever, they take on extra strain because your head is heavy. It's like the
14 pounds.
yeah, it's like, and if you are tilting your head forward, that 14 pounds can then feel like 30 pounds. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like mimicking these to the FaceTime, but you guys can't see. And so all this phone time, this is to say that all this screen time is not always helpful for our physical and emotional states.
Yeah, and like on the flip side of the connected coin, there is this like hyper connected sense that we are, like we are spending so much time connected to other people's highlight reels, connected to
Mm-hmm.
other people virtually, that we're not actually spending time with them like in person or connecting on a deeper, more meaningful level. Like it's very superficial in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And I feel like also with this rapid response, because we're so used to being connected all the time, our responses may not be as thoughtful because we aren't taking time to reflect, or if we're constantly connected to people's highlight reels, we're not living our own lives. We're just plugged into somebody else's. And then that brings its own host of feelings of perhaps shame or comparison or regret or this
Mhm.
FOMO. I don't think
Mhm.
FOMO existed before the internet. I really don't.
Yeah, because I mean, what would you have known that you were missing out on?
Right.
You wouldn't have known. You were completely in the dark.
Yeah.
Which I think in some ways is, better because then you're not spending you're not really splitting your mind in between this virtual world and like the real physical world, you know?
hmm And just think back to when we were kids, back in the good old days of the 90s. We had one computer in my house. We had one TV. We had cable. And if the show you wanted to watch wasn't on, you just didn't watch TV because there was like nothing else on.
Mhm.
And I remember my days as I mean, I was a kid, so I had, I guess, more active imagination than I do now. But I would read, I would play board games, I'd go outside, I'd play with my Barbie dolls. And now, as an adult, I finish working and I think, well, I guess I'll just watch Netflix. And it's like I've realized it's harder to entertain myself because I'm so used to reaching for my phone.
Mm.
And when I'm reading, I've started implementing like 30 minutes of reading in the morning while I drink coffee in an effort not to pick up my phone. And
Mhm.
I catch myself wanting to just like put down the book and see what other people are up to.
Mhm.
And I never used to do that. I could be nose in a book for 4 hours without noticing a truck barreling by, kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I was the same way as a child where I would just spend time reading and reading and reading. And I do that now more so at night. For me, it's like more of a wind down kind of thing. Like actually the first thing I do in the morning is check my email. But
hmm
it's usually before I get my toddler out of bed so I can
It's
like
like a defense mechanism of time.
yeah, have a couple minutes of like getting these like work things out of the way so I don't have to worry about it later in the day. And then I can take time to focus on him for breakfast. And as soon as he hears the coffee machine, if he's still asleep, he'll wake up. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I'm going to have to switch to instant.
You're gonna have to have like a very silent coffee machine right next to your bed.
Yeah.
You can just
Yeah, I'll
like,
have to switch to like pour over or something instead of Nespresso. But yeah, I think that it's like this desire, like even like it's kind of intense how it's like right before we go to bed and right when we wake up, where we're like,
Mhm.
what is everyone else doing? Like, what did I miss? And I think that's not really healthy.
Mhm. Well, studies have shown that just blue light before bed stimulates or activates some part of your brain that wakes it up so you cannot unwind with your phone. And
Mm.
they suggest, guys, listen to this. They suggest putting your phone down 2 hours before bed, which hurts a little, but also is that not a little bit freeing because you can do yoga and stretch and read and
Do things
have,
you're actually interested in and
yeah,
wind yourself down.
and then actually calm, that will actually calm you because you're not
Mhm.
distracting yourself. And that's one thing we've talked about, this distracted generation, right? One of
Mhm.
the reasons we're so deep into social media is because we're trying to distract ourselves from the things we don't want to think about or things that we're unhappy about.
Things we don't want to deal with or cope with or face, essentially. So, not to just make this episode a kind of a ranty negative episode, because I feel like there's a lot of like negative things we can say about social media and mental health and things like that. But I think there's a lot of more actionable tips kind of that we've been
Hmm.
touching on, with like putting your phone down 2 hours before bed, not, reaching for it right away in the morning and things like that. So I think maybe we can share a little bit about what we have been doing beyond that.
Yeah, so I think being as mindful as you can while you use social media. Nicole, do you want to talk more about how you do that?
Yeah, so for me, I only focus on like two apps essentially. Like, I have found that we have great communities on Instagram, like on my personal account, for my Gen 30, and then on Gen 20's account, and then on the Capsule Collab. Like,
Mhm.
those are the accounts that I focus on. And I focus on them in terms of connection with other people. Like, I don't just like, if I'm following people who I'm not connecting with their content, then I'm going to unfollow them. It's things that, like, as if you would be talking to them in real life, like something that you see that you can connect with them over, is how I feel. And I think those are the most worthwhile accounts to be following, because it's a whole other like numbers game with social media, where people are like, I need this many followers, I need this and that and whatever. But I think that just focusing on like one place you like to spend your time. And then I keep Facebook Messenger on my phone, 'cause how I chat with my sister. But that's like pretty much it. I don't really look at other apps other than my email. And I found just like cutting down on like what's even available to you on your phone, despite that everything can be available to you on your phone,
Mhm.
is like really such a game changer, because you're just automatically taking it out of your life, like your realm of accessibility. And I think like one thing that really made me pay attention to this was kind of like at the beginning of the pandemic, where TikTok was all the rage. I
Mhm.
guess TikTok still is all the rage, but I'm not the rage, so I just,
We've gotten over the rage.
yeah. um because there were days like where sitting at home, I would be like, oh, I'm just gonna look at TikTok for like 5 minutes, and it would be 4 hours later. 4 hours. And I have a toddler. What was he doing this whole time? I don't know.
Yeah, I the same for me. And I think what got me was when I would wake if I would wake up in the mornings, even if I hadn't been looking at TikTok the night before, with TikTok songs stuck in my head. And I was like,
Mhm.
this is not good. We can't do this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny how that is kind of like a tipping point, right? Where you're like, no, I will not be having these TikTok audios in my head.
Yeah. And it was so fun. And I do like get tempted to re-download TikTok every once in a while, but I've had to put boundaries on, like, okay, no, Instagram is what works for you. That's where your communities are. That's where your accounts are.
Mhm.
Likewise, I have 3 accounts I'm working on, so I don't need to increase my internet space
Mhm.
from that. And one thing I do to help with that too is I set timer limits. So after 15 minutes, my phone will say, okay, you've used up your Instagram time for the day. Do you want to increase for just a minute? Do you want another 15 minutes? Or do you want to unlimit your notifications?
Mhm.
And so that way I can know, all right, usually if I'm posting for the capsule collab or for my writing business, I know I need just about 15 minutes to write a post, engage a little bit, and I'll be done. And so
Mhm.
that helps me kind of organize my thoughts and brain of like, okay, this is what we're doing right now, and then we can put it away. Because otherwise
Mhm.
I'll stay and like wait for people to respond, which they might not. So I'm just hanging out for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I have limits set on different things on my phone. I actually recently turned them off though because I found that they were getting in the way of whenever I was trying to post on
Oh yeah.
things cuz
They
like when
always
you're
expire right when you're about to hit post, don't they?
yeah, and then it'll like delete the post or something. So I found that really frustrating, but I think it also like having them and then taking them away kind of made me be more mindful of the time I'm spending on social media and how I'm spending that time anyway because I mean I love creating things, I love writing, I love connecting, and I think that if you're using social media in a way that's just like scrolling endlessly, you kind of have to stop that because these apps are like designed to keep you on there and to keep you scrolling,
Hmm.
and it's only because you are the product.
Yeah. But you get to decide how you want to feel and how you want to use it.
Mhm.
And one thing I'm starting to try is to do like a no screen day
Mhm.
where, like, on a Sunday, if I know I don't have any calls planned or anything like that, I just leave my phone in a different room and I'll check it. Like, as I walk by, I'll check to see, did my dad call? Did anyone text me? But I won't hold my phone on my person. And it's
Mhm.
just that physical distance is very freeing.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's like something I've been trying to do too is like leave my phone in different rooms and or just like leave it charging or like out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
Mhm.
And then I found that if I kind of carry a book around with me instead of my phone, I'll read the book instead of my phone,
Mhm. Yeah.
which cuz I mean, sometimes my toddler like if I'm looking at something on my phone, he'll literally take it out of my hand and chuck it away. Which I'm glad because he doesn't want to look at it.
The toddler has spoken.
Yeah, but he's like, "No." And that's not even if I'm like on it for a long time, you know? It's like if I've just picked it up or something. And I think just knowing that like I'm modeling these behaviors for him and
Hmm.
that's not really a behavior I want him to fall into, I think is also really,
Important to you.
yeah, it's really important to me.
That's also like similarly, my dog looks really sad if we spend too much time on our computers and screens because he can tell that we're not paying attention to him, that we're not connecting with him.
Mhm.
And I have huge dog mom guilt, and so I will put my phone away and like get on his level and pet him and play with him. And
Mhm.
for me, that's enough to realize like he's 10 years old. I'm not going to have him forever. The phone can wait.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I feel about having a toddler as well because he will also come over and close my computer.
And say, Mom, time.
And yeah, he's like, "Hello." And I'm like, "You're only going to be this small for so long.
Hmm.
Only going to be mine for so long."
Yeah. So I think setting boundaries with your time and with your space of social media, like only using a few apps, only being on it for a certain amount of time, or being mindful with how you want to use the social media that day, those are three things you can do that will completely change how the scrolling might affect you.
And how social media will impact your mental health overall and your well being. And I think it's really just these small tweaks that will have a huge impact on our relationships with our phone and our relationships with other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, not to hate on social media, some of my closest friends I've made through either through social media or have been able to foster a friendship during the pandemic because of social media. So
Hmm.
it can be a really powerful tool, but we have to be the ones to decide how we want to use it and how we want it to be a part of our life.
Amen.
Well, thanks so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Gen 20 podcast. We'd love for you to leave us a rating and a review, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.